This is Dr. Iverson with another video to accompany Aldwell and Schachter, Chapter 31. Today we're going to talk about chromatic mediants and common tone diminished seventh chords, two of the topics in this chapter. Let's begin by listening to an example. This is the first 7 measures of a Schumann Fantasy Opus 17 third movement. I invite you to figure out jazz chords for 2 special moments in this example. The first is measure 2, and the second is over here in the second phrase. Pause your video now and figure out the jazz chord for these moments. Okay, so you figured out that measure 2 arpeggiates an A major sonority, and the end of the second phrase ends with an E major sonority. Note that neither of these are diatonic to C major, right? So they're chromatic in some way. And also note that both of them are related by third to C major. That is, A is a minor third away from C, and E is a major third away from C. So the roots are related by thirds, but these chords are not diatonic. See if you can figure out what Roman numeral you might put with these chords. Pause your video now and figure out the Roman numeral. If you said that the A major chord was a major 6, you're right. It begins on regular scale degree 6, La, or A in C major, but it's a major quality chord. So instead of A minor, little minor 6, it's a capital 6, right? Major 6. The first phrase proceeds rather conventionally then to 4, to 2-6-5, to 5-7, back to 1. We continue to arpeggiate down through 6 again, down to 4. And what did you put for the Roman numeral on this E major chord? One possibility is to think of it as a major 3 chord. So scale degree 3, or Mi, in C major is E. And normally we have an E minor triad there. Here we have an E major triad, so I've used normal scale degree 3, but I've made my Roman numeral capital to reflect the quality of the E major triad. Notice that there's a 4-3 suspension happening above the bass in this example. We go on then to a B flat major chord. Take a moment and see if you can think of what the Roman numeral is for this. If you said flat major 7, you're exactly right, a chord derived through mode mixture. Does anyone think this sounds a little unsatisfactory? Did anyone hear instead something more like a half cadence in A minor, moving to Neapolitan 6 at the beginning of the next phrase with the B flat chord? It's possible that the E major chord is functioning as 5 of A instead of functioning as major 3. Let's listen again, and you can decide what sounds best to your ears. Which one did you like? Personally, I really heard the 4-3 suspension as signaling a cadential 6-4 to 5-3 motion. And in fact, the piece goes on to tonicize A minor. So our second interpretation is probably the best one, given more context than what we have in this example. In your book, at the beginning of this chapter, you'll find a discussion of simple mixture, double mixture, secondary mixture. Holy cow, how do we keep all of this straight? Good news, I have a way. It's to erase all of those really picky terms and to group these chords together under one banner, chromatic mediants. So what I'm going to talk about now generalizes the relationships in your chapter, pages 590 to 595. So go ahead and go back to your book and match up what you read with what we are generalizing now. Okay, so mediant relationship means that chord roots are related by third. You know this, submediant, mediant. These are our la and mi relationships to do. And indeed, this is the mediant part of the label. The chromatic part of the label means that the chords do not have a diatonic relationship. They are chromatic. They don't belong to the same scalar collection. So let's figure out some diatonic and chromatic mediants here in the key of C. We'll put diatonic on the left side of the line and chromatic on the right side of the line. So just to start out with a simple relationship here between C and A minor. In C major, that would be 1 to 6. That's our submediant relationship. We've also learned about something like C to A flat, using mode mixture 1 to flat major 6. It turns out we can continue to vary these chords and create more possibilities here, more chromatic mediants. So C to A major, for instance, the progression we just saw in the Schumann, that would be 1 to major 6, so using la rather than lay for the root, but altering to make a major quality, an A major chord. And then we could also continue to use lay for the root, right, like A flat for the root, but we could use an A flat minor chord. I view this as an outside possibility, the 1 to flat minor 6, partly because there are no common tones between C major and A flat minor. And in the rest of the examples of the chromatic mediants, you have one common tone at least. So I think that the outside possibility here is C to A flat minor. It would be very rare. Our other mediant is above do, right? Do to mi. And here we have C to E minor, right? 1 to minor 3. We've learned again through mode mixture that one can use may instead of mi as the chord root, and then one ends up with C to E flat major or 1 to major flat major 3. Again, we can continue to vary the qualities of these mediant chords, introducing C to E major or 1 to a major chord built on mi, or we could use C to E flat minor, do to may in the root motion with a minor chord above may, a flat minor 3. Again, I consider this an outside possibility because there are no common tones between C major and E flat minor, whereas in all of the other chords that are written in purple, you have at least one common tone. Now it's your turn. Let's figure out all of the diatonic and chromatic mediants in the key of E flat major. Like I did, write your diatonic ones on the left-hand side of the line and your chromatic ones on the right-hand side of the line. Pause your video now and find the diatonic and the chromatic mediants in jazz chords and Roman numerals. Good work, everyone. Here's your answers. Your submediant, E flat to C minor. Your mode mixture, flat major 6. Keep in mind that the C flat major might be spelled as B major in real music. This is a common technique that one sees in composers like Schubert. And harmonicism. You could go to major 6, so E flat to C major, or as an outside possibility to flat minor 6, to C flat minor, or again, B minor, perhaps, practically speaking, and harmonically speaking. Let's go to the mediant above do. We would have E flat major to G minor as the diatonic possibility. The mode mixture possibility uses G flat major. Continuing to alter in a chromatic way could give us G major for capital major 3. Or our outside possibility of flat minor 3, G flat minor. Chromatic mediants could also occur from a minor starting tonic, but as is the case with mode mixture, going in this direction is less common in the literature. That's why we didn't practice it today. Our second topic in this chapter is common tone diminished seventh chords. Again, the name gives it away. Common tone diminished seventh chords prolong a harmony, usually tonic, by using a common tone. This common tone is usually in the bass as a pedal. That's what the common tone part of the title means. This is a prolongational chord that has a fully diminished 7 quality. That's what the diminished 7 in the title means. So this diminished 7th chord is not functional. That means it's not a 7 diminished 7 or a 7 diminished 7 of something in a progression that makes sense in that way. And therefore its jazz chord won't make sense as a Roman numeral in the same way that you would normally expect to see them corresponding. A diminished 7 common tone chord is created entirely by neighbor motion and the upper voices over a common tone pedal. Let's look at a musical example. I invite you to pause your video now and do all of the jazz chords. We're back. You've done your jazz chords. They're quite simple, quite a homophonic texture here. E major, A sharp diminished 7, E major, D sharp half diminished 7 over an E pedal. The second phrase repeats this. Same progression, ending with an E. So the Roman numerals are quite easy. Lots of 1 chords. I'm just going to fill all of those in since I know them. The D sharp half diminished 7, that's what I would expect in the key of E major, right? That's the diatonics leading tone chord. Notice that I did not put an inversion with this chord. I just allowed the Roman numeral to be in root position. I did this because the E pedal tone is kind of screwing up my perception of what's in the bass. In fact, we have an E pedal tone in this entire excerpt, don't we? So in that case, I just left the inversion off of my change of harmony there. Okay, so the only thing we have left now is this A sharp fully diminished 7. What Roman numeral would that be? Did you think possibly a 7 fully diminished 7 of B, a leading tone chord to 5? Well, that's a good answer as long as it progresses to 5. But that doesn't happen here. We don't have any dominants or 5s or B major harmonies in this excerpt. So it's not really seeming to function in that way. Let's try again. Could this be a common tone diminished 7th chord? Let's take a look at the voice leading here and see if we can confirm. Remember, we're looking for chromatic neighbor motion above a tonic pedal. And over in the margin, you can write your voice leading if you want. In the bass, we have E, E, E. That's our pedal tone, right where we expected it in the bass voice. In the tenor, we have B, C sharp, B. In the alto, G sharp, G natural, G sharp. And in the soprano, B, A sharp, B. So chromatic neighbor motion in all of those upper voices congeals to create a fully diminished 7th chord based entirely on neighbor motion above a pedal tone. Summing up, common tone diminished 7th chords are linear prolongational chords that make a pedal tone, often a tonic pedal, fancier by using chromatic neighbor motion above. Chromatic mediants are major or minor third away from the starting chord and have a chromatic relationship to the starting chord. They are derived through mode mixture or other more distant borrowings and alterations. Please read your book, Aldwell and Schachter, Chapter 31, for more. I'll see you on Tuesday.